Very wonderful. Thank you. Elements. And Craig, thank you for that fabulous rendition of... I think it's one of the greatest talks, visions that has ever been given. I was going to go straight into my talk, however, there's been a little violation of kind of ministerial code and how we do things here. So as an elephant in the room, I feel that I need to address, I'm not the elephant, there is an elephant in the room that needs to be addressed. Find me one person who is for something and against nothing. But there was a Ernest Holmes saying about, find me one person who is so completely divorced from himself, all arrogance. And I'm just wondering about, gloating. I mean, I'm just saying. But I am glad that you resolved the reason why the Ducks lost is because they did not have the right diet. They were smoking dope, which is what you do in Eugene. And Ohio State was not eating. How are you? See, I've moved on. We teach in religious science, you just put it behind you and move on. God is always good all the time. And so I know that God is good and good all the time, and so I'm not worried about it. As the person who watched the game with me, as my partner Cynthia said, it can attest to, I had no grief whatsoever. I was not laying on the floor crying and throwing a temper tantrum. Don't tell them about that, okay? Please don't tell them about that. But there was maybe a little sadness, but we move on. So today I want to talk about what is your dream? We listened to this beautiful expression of dream from Martin Luther King. What is your dream? What is it that wants to be expressed through you? Last week we talked about our intentions and our goals and taking steps to achieve those, but before we even have those, if those of you who were in the intentions retreat last weekend remember that we did a vision and we did a purpose statement. What am I here to be? Who am I? What is my dream? Because the intentions fill in how to bring the dream into form, but we first have to have the dream. Do you know what I mean? We first have to have the dream. What is the real dream that calls you? What is the real dream that calls me? What is the new heaven and the new earth for you? What does that look like? So many of us, when we tap into our dreams, we're really tapping into our primal life energy. The vitality of what makes us alive, the who we came here to be, the why I took on this body and suited up on this planet and showed up. We start to tap into that energy. We know what it is. Every one of you knows what it is. But what happens is, as soon as we hit this planet, there's this energy that says, you can't do that. Who do you think you are? Dr. King addressed it with the racial prejudice that was surrounding him at the time. Here he's having this beautiful vision of freedom, of people being able to just interact as people. Not as black, not as white, not as Jew, Gentile, Protestant, Catholic, old, young, whatever, but just to people being able to take hands with each other. But that wasn't what was happening around him. He had to go against that energy that was happening. And the truth is, eventually that energy took his life. But you know what it didn't take? His dream. That dream is continuing on. Today we see life and it is better than it was. It still has a long, long way to go. But it's better than it was when he had that dream. It's better. And the dream is handed off to other people to continue its expression. to where we can really truly realize it in this country, everywhere in this country. You and I each have a dream. Whenever we touch that dream, though, it brings up our fear. It brings up what in rebirthing we used to call it the death urge, the fear of death. Because our dream is so big that we're afraid that either it's going to kill us or we're going to get killed for it. Or that if we go out and try it, it's not going to work out, and then what? How many of you have had something that you don't even want to tap onto because you know that if you go out and try it and you fail, you're going to be sitting there going, well, what do I do with the rest of my life now? Okay, I know there's people. We ran across that in the intentions retreat, some people who shared that. So as a result, we don't go for our dream. We get practical. We settle. We do what's the right thing. Or we try it and the first way it doesn't work and then we quit. I remember a beautiful person shared with us her story in the intentions retreat that she had tried a process. She had a dream and she had tried a process. And when the process didn't work, she gave up on her dream. She thought that the dream and the process were one and the same. Martin Luther King tried process after process, and people who have tried to create racial equality, before and after, have tried process after process after process, from legislation to violence to everything in between. And some processes have worked better than others, but we keep on going. Last week we talked about the little Harry Potter thing where Ron and Harry and Hermione are throwing things at the troll, trying to take the troll down. You try process after process after process until it works. Edison and the Wright brothers, and I was thinking of Goddard, who invented rocket flight, or was one of the pioneering fathers of that. Tried process after process after process that didn't work, and they didn't quit. You ever see any of those early rocket movies from the 1910s and 1915s where they're sitting out there on the ice somewhere and they're launching a rocket and it comes up like this and it turns sideways, or it just goes bleh, or whatever like that, or just sits there and fizzles? How many of you have had dreams like that, or processes that have done that in your life? Right? I certainly have. But the dream of flight, the dream of rocket propulsion, the dream of a light bulb, the dream of people dealing with each other with love and respect, regardless of their color or race or creed or gender, the dream keeps on going and eventually manifests, because these are Spirit's dreams. It is natural, it is God ordained that all of this should happen. This is how the universe is. We live in a universe where we talk about that there's only one life. And so life doesn't sit there and look at that and say, well, you're such and such, so I shouldn't get along with you, because it is the same life. That's like you looking at your arm and saying, I don't like you because you're an arm. I'd rather you were a leg. Legs are better than arms. So I'm just going to cut you off and not deal with you. You wouldn't do that, right? Hopefully. Okay, good. So we have these dreams. We have dreams of relationships. We have dreams of careers. We have dreams of all sorts of things that we either settle for less. There was a study done that of a group of people who left when they left college. A number of them went for money. They went for jobs that would get them the most money, that they would make the most money. And a few, when they left college, went for careers that involved their dream. What do I really want to do? 20 years later, they checked in with those people, and they found out that the ones who went for money were making less than those who had gone for their dream. Isn't that interesting? They made less. I have a friend who's named Tama Keeves. She was trained as in Harvard to be a lawyer, and had started a wonderful law career with a big firm in Boston, which she was pretty much guaranteed to rise up through, and she was already making six-figure income and heading up there. And she finally realized her dream was to be a writer. It was never to be a lawyer. She wanted to be a lawyer because that's what her parents wanted her to be. Okay? But her dream was to be a writer, so she quit the law firm and went off to be a writer. Now here's the interesting thing. We have to sometimes, when we go for our dream, be willing to have that first little drop and the confusion and the it doesn't work out right and go through that period. Because she ended up waiting tables in Denver, which is where she moved to, meanwhile her law firm buddies were off making ever larger six-figure incomes. And looking at her going, what the blankety blank you think you're doing? You're crazy. But she wasn't crazy, and she knew what she was doing, and she kept on writing, and she kept on getting rejection slips, until one day she finally got an acceptance, and finally one day she self-published her own book called This Time I Dance. And after a while, that book became so popular, it got picked up by a major publisher. She's written a couple other books since then. She's now known as a wonderful coach for people who want to follow their dreams. Isn't that great? I make a career of supporting people and following their dreams, which is my dream. Yeah. I don't know if she's making what she would have made in a law career, but she's infinitely happier, and she makes good money. And she gets to go around the world working with people doing that. So we either settle for less, or we quit when it doesn't work out the first time. And it's hard to deal with that feeling when it doesn't work out. When the Ducks lose. I'm sorry, did that infiltrate into here? But we confuse the failure of the process with the death of the dream. We confuse the failure of the process of how we went about making our dream happen with the death of the dream itself. But the dream isn't dead. See, the dream, it's our life itself. It's the life energy itself. It doesn't die. The dream is who you and I came here to be and who you and I came here to express, what you and I came here to express. It doesn't die. See, each of you still has a dream. It's sitting there back in your closet going, ka-thump, 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 ka-thump. You know, that little heart dream? The one that maybe some of you have pushed away and said, don't bother me. I've got a really comfortable life going. Things are just fine. But I don't want to listen to that. Maybe you don't, but you've known people like that, right? Okay, just... I had a relationship dream and a career dream that were kind of tied together. My ex-wife and I had gone through ministerial school together, and so I had this dream of relationship. I wanted to have this, my dream of relationship was that I was in a relationship in which I love and am loved as God loves. That was my purpose statement. That was my vision statement. And by the way, if you don't have a vision for your relationship or for your career or whatever, create a vision statement. Understand why you're together, what it is that you want to bring forward. It's good if you kind of both have vision statements to work together. I also had the vision of a co-ministry. Because we were ministers, we were going to do ministry together. We're going to go build a church in New England, start a church in New England. And of course, that all came crashing down. And for a while, it took me a while to realize that the dream itself that I had of ministry was still alive, even though it wasn't with this person, and it wasn't in that location. And you know what? It's a lot warmer and nicer in Redding than it is in Connecticut today. I realized yesterday that it was 1 year ago on the 12th, so just about 1 year ago this weekend, that I came here and spoke for the first time. Did my Harry Potter workshop and loved it so much that I went home and started packing because I knew I was moving here. I put out that I wanted to move to New England, and the universe, for some reason on my computer screen right about then, I kept getting weather reports, the little weather thing, and for some reason it was stuck on Hartford, Connecticut. I don't know why, to this day I don't know why. But for 6 weeks, the temperature in Hartford, Connecticut never got above 32 degrees. That was the high. The low was in the single digits, and I said, God, where do you really want me to be? And so I've ended up in warmer places. I had to realize that the dream of the relationship that I truly wanted had not died. I pushed it off for a long time. I was even still pushing it off a little bit when I got here. And it was funny because a few months ago, I had this little moment where I finally realized that, yes, I'm really ready to move into a relationship. And I said that in my prayer one day to Spirit. I said, I'm willing. And a week later, somebody walks into my office and says, do you want to dance? And it's like, okay, thank you, God. That was pretty dang fast. When we open up to our dream, when we say yes to our dream, the universe moves oftentimes that quickly. You know, when my wife and I divorced, she told me on the 31st of January, 4 years ago, that she didn't want to be married to me anymore. 1 week later, I got a call saying, would you be interested in being a minister at the church in Clarkson, Washington? They're looking for a minister. 1 week. Okay? That's how fast it took to switch. And I could say, yes, I'll take that dream, thank you very much. It's also warmer over there than it is in Connecticut. Instead of being a 6-hour plane ride away from Seattle, it's a 5-hour drive away from Seattle. So I could still go visit my friends and hang out. And that, of course, led me eventually down to this church. When we say yes to our dream, when we keep the dream alive, the universe finds the ways to make it happen. You don't have to figure it out. I could not have figured out the process to get me here. And if I had figured it out, it would have been with a person that, you know, was challenging to be with, and in a way, it wouldn't have worked. Just put it that way. I don't want to down talk anybody, but you know, it just wouldn't have worked. Do we say yes to our dream? Are we willing to say yes to our dream? Okay. So we start to define our dream. If you were to go into your closet and shake the dust off your dream, what would it look like? What is it? What's your dream for your life? What does it look like? See, I love Martin Luther King's speech because he starts to specify, this is what it looks like. Children are holding hands. The sons of slaves and the sons of former slave owners are getting along. This is what it looks like, the specifics, the specific, the specific. What does your dream look like? What are the specifics to it? It's one nice thing to say, oh, I have a dream that everybody gets along. It's another thing to say, and this is what that looks like. And start to bring it into form and manifestation. What's your dream for the world? What is your dream for the world? And are you willing to say, yes, I'm willing to let that happen through me? I don't even know how. It's so big that it scares the you-know-what out of me. But I'm willing to say yes. See, there's no way that Martin Luther King or anybody else could control what white racists were thinking at that point in time. He couldn't change their minds and their hearts. There was no process that he had to go in and, you know, inject them with a drug that would, you know, suddenly make them be, you know, decent human beings. But he had the vision. He had the dream. And he said, I'm willing to hold this dream. I'm willing to declare this dream. I'm willing to share this dream and speak it out to where it becomes not just mine, but where it becomes all of our dream. It becomes a universal dream. It touches the hearts of every one of us because we know it's correct. We know it's right. So what is your heart dream? What is that thing that's beating and pounding within you? I remember there was a lovely poem from Edgar Allan Poe called The Telltale Heart. It wasn't necessarily about a dream, but it was about a heart that kept on beating through the floor, and you couldn't get away from it. You have a dream that's beating your heart. And you know what it is. Take a breath. You know what it is. Are you willing to go for it? Are you willing to say yes to it?
Yes.
Yes.
Testify. Thank you. And then are you willing to define it, to start to put legs underneath it, to start to say, this is what it looks like? I'm going to warn you. If somebody on the way out the door asked me, said, I have a book for you to read that I'd like to. It talks about kind of the darker side of working through stuff. And she said, in religious science, we're so often told to look away from the dark side and just focus on the positive. And sometimes you have to go through the darkness. There's a wonderful phrase from the Bible, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, because thy rod and thy staff protect me. There's a couple of things to note from that. Number one, you walk through the valley of the shadow of death, you don't set up camp. You don't build a 4-star resort and call it your place of residence, okay? You keep walking through. And secondly, although you're walking through it, you're focused on the infinite presence within that is the guide, the rod, the staff that guides us through that. It doesn't mean that as religious scientists or as spiritual people, we won't face dark times. We will. Welcome to the planet. You've probably already figured that out, right? This is not news to you, right? Is it news to anybody that we're going to face, that we have challenge? Okay, good. So when you go for your dream, what it's going to do is bring up all that stuff big time, because it's what you've been afraid of and what has been holding you back from your dream. And then you get the chance to face it down. You start to hear the voices, who was it? Spiro Agnew, who said, the nattering nabobs of negativity. Remember that phrase from I think it was the 70s? The nattering nabobs of negativity that live within each of us. They'll say, you can't. You're too young, you're too old, you're too fat, you're too skinny, you're not educated enough, you don't have enough money, you don't have enough time. You can't. You shouldn't. That's impractical. Be practical. Don't go for your dream. You know what happens to people who go for their dreams, don't you? Yeah, they get them usually. Who do you think you are? Who do you think you are to go for your dream?
I'm awesome.
Thank you. Yes, you are. I love that Marianne Williamson poem that I read last week. Who are you not to be fabulous, magnificent, and brilliant? Nobody else ever has done it. Right, it's your dream. Nobody else ever has done it. If everybody else had already done it, it wouldn't be your dream. Are we willing to go through this? And are you willing to dump that stuff out of your life? You know, yesterday I was counseling with a person that I've worked with for a lot of years and doing a practitioner session. And she said, I want to have the equivalent of the Battle of 5 Armies, for those of you who have seen the last Hobbit movie. I want to have the equivalent of the Battle of 5 Armies, and I want that stuff, that old stuff that I've been dealing with, killed and out of my life.
That's right.
Yep. She says, I'm tired of working on it and working on it and working on it and working on it. I want it gone.
That's right.
Okay? And so we get to declare what it is we want. Do we want to be free? Do we want to be free of excuses? If you want to do your dream, you have to be free of excuses. Do you want to be free of your belief in limitation and lack?
Yes.
Do you want to be free of your past failures?
Yes.
Do you want to be free of giving power to your smallness?
Yes.
Ooh. Let me tell you, I can't really do this because. Are you willing to be free of giving power to your past hurts?
Yes.
I got this story. This person really, really did it to me. And I've been dragging this story along for 50 years. Are you willing to be free of it?
Yes.
It's a ball and chain in your life, in case you want to know. So we start to get in touch with what's our dream. We start to define it. We start to say what it looks like. I'm going to share a dream that I have. I have a dream for this community. Would you be interested?
Yes.
That first weekend that I was here, I met with the search committee, and Harry Bliley was kind of grilling me. For those who know Harry, he can be a little gruff sometimes. Wonderful man, deep, deep, wonderful, beautiful heart. But can be a little gruff sometimes. And I looked at him, I said, Harry, I want to give you a problem. He goes, what's that? He says, I want you to have the problem of trying to figure out where we're going to be holding the interim services for this church as we build a bigger sanctuary, because we've outgrown this one. Would you be willing to have that problem?
Yeah.
Some of you would. Some of you, you're not so sure. The reason I want to grow this church isn't, I won't tell you what it isn't for. What it is for is because we touch lives. We touch people's hearts, we inspire people to live bigger and better lives, and we don't just inspire, we empower them. We have processes and techniques and ways to inspire them to actually do it, to put legs underneath their dreams.
Absolutely.
And as we do that, we start to shift this community of Reading, we start to shift this county, this North State, and this world. People listen to these talks, by the way. Do you know that from around the world? We get a weekly thing of hits on our webpage. Yeah, we get hits from literally, lots of hits from literally all continents. There are people in China who are watching this service. Hi, ni hao ma. So we influence people. We want to grow this center because we can expand the power of what we do. If you've never been, see, I come from Seattle, which had, at its height, 1,400 people on a Sunday. People had healings. They would walk into the room and have healings, physical healings, just from the pure love and energy that was in that room. Okay? I don't know that we'll ever be quite that big here. But we can be a whole lot bigger than we are. My dream is we have a music program that rocks the house constantly every single Sunday. I mentioned that at the 9 o'clock service, and they don't know what we do for music because they don't come to the service with music for the most part. A few of them overlap here. But I said, you got to check in because it's getting a whole lot better. The choir is just moving and shaking. Yes. The elements are getting more elemental. We have fabulous musicians coming. This coming Saturday, Andy Anderson. How many were here at my installation? Okay, remember Andy Anderson, the last musician we had? As a friend of mine said, as somebody in the congregation said, he did what nobody else has ever been able to do in this congregation, to get a bunch of old white people up off their seats, shaking their booty. Okay? You're going to have a whole evening of him doing that. If you want to feel it, if you want to feel the power of Spirit.
With a dance floor?
The dance floor is here. A month after that, we have Esther Nicholson, who was one of the backup singers for Rod Stewart and is a fabulous practitioner out of the Agape. She's going to come here, she's going to do the talk, and she's going to do singing also. Powerful singer. A couple weeks after that, we've got Eddie Watkins Jr. Anybody know Eddie Watkins besides these two? I know you do, because I played him. Okay, Eddie's the former music director in Las Vegas and then in Seattle, and he was a bass player for a whole lot of the Motown bands in the 60s and 70s. He does a Motown and Miracles concert it'll be Tuesday the 17th, St. Patrick's Day evening, that you will want to be at. Okay? So we are building music because music gets to your heart, it gets to your soul. I can sit here and blab and it goes in your ears and it gets to your head, and maybe it shifts your soul a little bit. But music, thank you, but music gets to our heart and our body and really allows us to embody this message so much more powerfully. Okay? So my dream is to build this music program to where it empowers us. My dream is to build the spiritual growth and depth of each person here. See, we're not here just to do fancy Sunday talks or a big show on Sunday. We'll leave that to other churches. We're here to inspire you to live better lives, as I talked about earlier. And that's why we have classes. That's why we have like Reverend Mary and Marilyn and Sue and Kay and Diana and myself. We teach these classes to support you in taking what you hear on Sunday and saying, how do I do this and how do I apply it on a daily basis in my life? Okay? If you're not taking the classes, you're missing out on the real core of this teaching. And you're missing out on the possibility, the potential to really power up your life. I have a dream that our youth and our young adults are totally supported in that foundational aspect of their lives. Yes. To where they're built, to where they're taught the truth of who they are. A lot of us had to unlearn a lot of stuff when we first came to a church like this, right? Yeah. Wouldn't it be great if we did not have to unlearn all that stuff, if we were just straight line power through? Yes. When we opened up and said yes to Spirit, there was nothing within us going, but. They told me God was really angry up in the sky there. I have a dream that we have SEVA, volunteer career opportunity, a powerful volunteer program working here to support this community, and then a powerful volunteer program that works outside this community to support the greater Redding area. Do you want to help build that dream? Yes. This Saturday morning from 9 to noon, we're having a visioning for what is the vision, the collective vision that wants to come through the center. I originally set it up for the leadership team, but I've decided that anybody who wants to be on the leadership team, anybody, please come to that visioning. We'll be here in the sanctuary. 9 o'clock Saturday morning, 3 hours. 2 weeks later, we're going to have the wonderful Linda Rapon, who launched the Launching Pad program, which was a young person, young adults program. She looked around, and several of us had looked around and said, there's nothing for young adults. We take care of kids, then we get them again when they show up at 40 years old with families, but we don't do anything for that 20 to 35-year-old group of people. And so she said, I'm going to do something. I'm going to stop talking about it. I'm going to follow my dream and do it. And so she's wonderful. And so she built something called the Launching Pad in Berkeley, and now there's several of them around. One of them up in Ashland, which we actually support financially and help them out. And so she's going to be here on February the 7th for an all-day workshop to start to take the vision that we come up with and learn how to build legs under it and turn it into a 5-year plan for where we want to be 5 years from now. If you want to play in either of those or both of those ideally, please join us for that. There's no cost, there's no, none of that, but just come and be part of that. I'm going to invite you to that. So if you want to be a leader in this community, if you want to be a leader in building the dream, if you want to be a leader in building this. We have a young man who's here today from the Placerville Church who recently moved to here. And Jason looked around and he said, you own this building? Yeah, this is our building. Because Placerville meets in the town hall. They've got a little office space separate from that, but they meet in the town hall. We get to come into this beautiful place that was built 25 years ago, following the dream and the vision of the congregation at that point in time. I had another friend who walked in and said, what did this building used to be? And I said, it's never used to be anything. It's been a religious science church from the day the walls were raised and the ceiling was put on. It was built for this. It was built for us. Because a whole lot of churches are into buildings that used to be something else, or even churches that used to be something else. So our dream is to continue that. Our dream is to empower that. So I just wanted to share that dream with you so you know what our community dream is trying to be. And I want to invite you this week then to do 3 things. Number 1 is to listen to your dream. Listen, what is my dream? What is it that I know wants to come through me that I've been maybe shutting down for a whole long time, or putting on the back burner and saying, well, maybe someday, or whatever. So number 1, what is it? Listen to it. Number 2, give it clarity. Specify it. Start to build a picture of what it looks like. You don't have to have all the details. See, I don't know all the details of what we're going to do in 5 years, but I know the direction I want to go. I know the areas I want to work on. So what does that look like? Give it some clarity. And thirdly, commit to it. Do something about it. Ernest Holmes says, most people tend to be overread and underdone. Okay? So we take this and apply it. Do something with it. Are you willing to do that this week?
Yes.
I'm going to close with Ernest Holmes' version of what I call the I Have a Dream speech, which was his last speech at Asilomar. Asilomar was, how many people have been to Asilomar? Great, several of you have. Asilomar is a beautiful center over in Pacific Grove, just outside of Monterey. And for many, many years, Religious Science had an annual kind of summer camp, I guess you would call it, and where religious scientists literally from all over the world would come together and convene and meet and hang out for a whole week. And back in the day, Ernest Holmes was still walking the grounds and alive, and he would always close that by giving what was always called the Sermon by the Sea. But this one was the last one. It was the year before he passed on. So I'd like to share some excerpts from that. And I was telling the first service, it's a little bit lengthy, just to set you up. It's earnest, okay? Anybody who's read the Science Mind textbook, it's earnest, okay? And you know 2 things about earnest. Number 1, it's lengthy and wordy. And number 2, it's deep. So it's really hard to cut stuff out of it and say, well, that's not important. Our religion is not something to be lived merely here at Asilomar, as much inspiration as we receive from it, but rather to take that consciousness which we arrived at here back with us into whatever activities we may be engaged in. There is nothing in the world that can take the place of love, friendship, appreciation, and cooperation in our lives. I have thought so much about this all week because these are the only things that have any meaning in the eternal values in which we are so interested. I'll repeat those again. Love, friendship, appreciation, and cooperation. Emerson said that it is very easy for us to maintain a spiritual equilibrium in solitude, but the great man is he who in the midst of the crowd shall still keep the sweetness, the independence of his solitude. Everything that lives proclaims the glory of God. Every person who exists manifests the life of God. Excuse me. There is one spirit in which we live, one mind by which we think, one body of which we are a part, and one light that lighteth every man's pathway. We are a part of the evolution of human destiny. We are a part of the unfoldment of the divine intelligence in human affairs. It has reached the point of conscious and deliberate cooperation with that principle of evolution and the outpush of the creative urge of the Spirit, on this planet at least, to bring about innumerable centers which it may enjoy. That's you and me. We are the centers of Spirit which it may enjoy. Also, we may enjoy it through the divine interior awareness, which is the intercommunication of God with man, revealing our own divine nature. Having had the privilege of starting religious science, I would wish, will, and desire above all things else that the simplicity and purity of our teaching could never be violated. There's a purpose of simplicity, a consciousness of unity, a straight-line thinking in our philosophy that has never appeared before in the world outside of the teachings of men like Jesus and Emerson. It would be my desire that the simplicity and purity and directness, that straight thinking, should never depart from the techniques of our practitioners or instructions of our teachers or understandings of our lay people. It is the most direct impartation of divine wisdom that has ever come to the world because it incorporates the precepts of Jesus and Emerson and Buddha and all the rest of the wise. And I would that in our teaching there would never be any arrogance, for it always indicates spiritual immaturity to me. Others will arise who will know more than we do. They won't be better or worse. They will be different and know more than we do. Evolution is forward. It would be wonderful indeed if a group of persons should arrive on earth who were for something and against nothing. This would be the summum bonum of human organization. Find me one person who is for something and against nothing, who is redeemed enough not to condemn others out of the burden of his soul, and I will find another Savior, another Jesus, and an exalted human being. Find me one person who no longer has any fear of the universe, or of God, or of man, or of anything else, and you will have brought to me someone in whose presence we may sit, and fear shall vanish as clouds before the sunlight. Find me someone who has given all that he has to love, without morbidity, and I will find the lover of my soul. Why? Because he will have revealed to me the nature of God and proved the possibility of all human souls. Find me one person who can get his own littleness out of the way, and he shall reveal to me the immeasurable magnitude of the universe in which I live. Find me one person who knows how to talk to God really, and I shall walk with him through the woods, and everything that seems inanimate will respond. The leaves of the trees will clap their hands. The grass will grow soft under him. Find me one person who communes with cause and effect, and in the evening star will sing to him, and the darkness will turn to light. Through him, as the woman who touched the hem of the garment of Christ was healed, shall I be healed of all loneliness forever. Find me someone who is no longer sad, whose memory has been redeemed from morbidity, and I shall hear laughter. Find me someone whose song is really celestial, because it is the outburst of the cosmic urge to sing, and I shall hear the music of the spheres. Find me one person who is so completely divorced from himself all arrogance, and you will have discovered for me an open pathway to the kingdom of God here and now. Find me somebody who has detached his emotional and psychological ego from real self, without having to deny the place it plays in the scheme of things, and without slaying any part of himself, because the transcendence is there also. And I will have discovered the ineffable in this individual and a direct pathway for the communion of my own soul. I am talking about you and myself. When I say find a person, I don't mean to go over to Rome or London or go back to your own church. The search is not external. This person exists in us all. They are different attributes and qualities of our own soul. They are different visions. Each of us on the inner side has been and shall remain in eternal communion with the ineffable, where he may know that he is no longer with God, but one of God. If it were not for that which echoes eternally down the corridors of our own minds, some voice that ever sings in our own souls, some urge that continuously presses us forward, there would be no advance in our science or religion or in the humanities or anything else. You are religious science. I am not. I am only the one who puts something together. I do not even take myself seriously, but I take what I am doing seriously. You are religious science. Our ministers, our teachers, our practitioners, our lay people. You find me 1,000 people in the world who know what religious science is and use it and live it as it is. And I myself will live to see a new world, a new heaven, and a new earth here. What I am saying is this. There is a law that backs up the vision, and that law is immutable. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my word shall not pass away. There is a power transcendent beyond our needs, our little wants. Demonstrating a dime is good if one needs it, or healing oneself of a pain is certainly good if one has it. But beyond that, at the real feast, at the tabernacle of the Almighty, in the temple of the living God, in the banquet hall of heaven, there is something beyond anything that you and I have touched. Find 1,000 people who know that and use it, and the world will no longer be famished. How important it is that each one of us, in his simple way, shall live from God, to God, with God, and in God, and to each other. That is why we are here. And we are taking back with us, I trust, a vision and an inspiration, something beyond a hope and a longing, that the living Spirit shall through us walk anew into its own creation, and a new glory come with a new dawn.
Amen.
Let us take the power of those words and move them into prayer. And so I recognize there is that one infinite life, that one presence, that one power, far beyond our imagination, far beyond anything that we have ever yet touched. And yet it is within us, and we are within it. For we are one of God. We are one of that magnificence. We are one of that glory. We are one of that life energy, that love, that light, that beauty, that joy, that wholeness, that peace. We are that in form, one of that power, one of that grace. This is our true nature. And I speak my word that each of us today recognizes to a far greater degree than ever before. We get it. It shifts and moves through us, that we are that nature, and we take that nature with us out into our lives, into our world, and we express that nature in the most full, powerful, positive, beautiful, brilliant way possible. We don't have to know how. We have to be willing. We have to open the door a crack and be willing and say yes to Spirit. I am willing to have this dream that is my dream, this vision that is my vision, this purpose in which I, as you, took form on this earth. We say yes to that. We find it in our heart of hearts. We find it in the deepest essence of our being. We find it in every cell, in every atom, in every subatomic particle, and all the space in between. We say yes to the divine. We allow it to evolve us forward. And out of that comes so much good that will shake this world to its foundations and create a new heaven and a new earth. We are the agents of that change. We are the agents of Spirit. It is our yes that allows this to happen. It is our dream and saying yes to our dream that creates and is the foundation for this great new world. And so we say yes to that. And out of gratitude for all that comes from this, I release this word, this powerful word, this vision that we have held together, that we hold together, into a law that knows how to manifest it into form and experience and expression in the most beautiful, positive, and perfect, powerful, wonderful ways. We say yes. And as we say yes, it is done. It is done unto us. is done into the world. And together we say, and so it is. Thank you.